Mr. Secretary, thank you, sir. We appreciate and applaud the direction and leadership you're providing at USDA. I'm David Cantu. I came up from McAllen, Texas. And I'm glad to be here with you today. As we ask that you not forget the small farmers also. President Obama committed $1.25 billion on top of $1 billion already appropriated to settle the black farmers lawsuit against the USDA. And the president said he was pleased to close that ugly chapter in your agency's history. And we understand that you have inherited these problems. We completely understand that, Mr. Secretary. We are confident you are committed to moving USDA into a new era of civil rights. But Hispanic farmers and ranchers suffered the exact same discrimination, and there is no justice for us. We need to close the book of discrimination at USDA and on all minorities, Mr. Secretary. The Department of Justice maintains that our cases need to be certified to discuss settlement, but that's not true. USDA can engage in meaningful, good faith negotiations at any time, but we choose not to. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the White House and ask President Obama to settle the Garcia lawsuit? Thank you. God bless you, and God bless America.
First of all, I really appreciate the question. A little background. In 1862, Abraham Lincoln established the Department of Agriculture as the People's Department. I think he understood and appreciated that the Department of Agriculture had far reach. We were at that time an agrarian country, and he wanted the department to reflect and represent the interests of those folks. Unfortunately, we've not lived up to that billing. We have, folks, a very sad history at the USDA of discriminating against farmers from many different cultures. Hispanic farmers, American Indian farmers, African American farmers, women farmers, all of whom have filed litigation and lawsuits against the USDA that have spanned years and in some cases over a decade. When I came into office, I went and talked to all the former secretaries I could talk to, and one of the best pieces of advice I got from Secretary Glickman was to really make a concerted effort to try to address the civil rights wrongs of the department. The first thing we did was an executive directive, which is designed to do several things. One, to reopen. There were 13,000 civil rights complaints filed in the previous 8 years before I came into office. Of that 13,004 were determined to have been founded or been bona fide claims. I was skeptical of that. I'm not a statistician, but I think 4 out of 13,000 is probably too low a number. And so I asked that those files be reopened. And what we found in our reopening review is that unfortunately and tragically, many of those files were set aside for over 2 years, allowed the statute of limitations to expire, and then we're told, sorry, there's no administrative opportunity here at USDA, and then no judicial remedy because the statute of limitations is run. We are in the process now of asking Congress, because we can't do this on our own. We would if we could, but we can't do it on our own, to pass a 1 or 2 sentence provision in some bill, I don't care what it is, that says we have the power to reopen those cases and allow those folks not to have to be barred by the statute of limitations. So it gives them a remedy that has been denied them. The second thing we did was to take a look at the future and make sure that we're not continuing to do the same thing we've always done. And so we hired an outside expert who's consulted with Fortune 500 companies to take a look at our operations, our rural development operations, our farm service operations, to tell us what we need to do to change them, to correct them, to fix them, so we don't have 13,000 claims in the future. The third thing we did is we began a systematic process of trying to address the cases Now, the Pickford case, which is the African-American case, is one that is a little bit easier, unfortunately, to deal with for two reasons. One, because it was certified as a class action. Therefore, there's only one case. There's a process within that one case to settle all the various claims. It's one case. And two, the Congress of the United States injected itself into the process by saying, we want you to settle this case, and here is $100 million in addition to the money you've already spent to settle the case. With that directive, we went to the President and said, Mr. President, that $100 million is wonderful, but it's not enough. We need more than that. The President gave us authorization to ask Congress for more than that, and we're in the process of trying to get that additional money, and then we could use the system that's already in place for distributing those monies to farmers. The Garcia case is a little different because it wasn't certified as a class action. So therefore, what we're faced with is thousands of claims, thousands of separate individual cases. The USDA does not control the litigation. We're the client, but we don't control the litigation in the sense that we can't direct the Department of Justice to do certain things. They can make their own decisions. What I'm suggesting is that a vehicle needs to be created in which we can resolve these cases in a systematic way. Because if you have to try every single one of those cases, with the exception of you, sir, the rest of us are going to be old and gray for way beyond our years. So we need a process, and I think Congress could direct that process. They could say to the USDA, we want these cases settled, and I'm happy to accept this responsibility if they give it to me. I want this case settled, set up a mediation process, set up some kind of process where you can determine which cases are good and which cases aren't good, and the cases that are good, what the damages are. If that process is set up, we will absolutely, I can guarantee you, we will follow the law and we'll try to get these cases resolved as quickly as possible. Absent that, it becomes more difficult. Because unless you have a process like the Pickford folks have, or you have a pot of money like the Pickford folks have, it's difficult for USDA to do anything. So we need either a pot of money or we need a process. And we can either get the process through the courts or through Congress. We can get the money through Congress. We don't care how it works, we're happy to work. We want these cases to get resolved. Cases that are justified, they're bona fide, and justice denied and delayed is justice denied. We understand that. So we'll do everything we possibly can to encourage members of Congress and others to get this. I will also convey that message to the President. The gentleman said we're running out of time. I know that. The problem is that there's no process. You have to have a process. You have to have some way of distinguishing between the good cases and the cases that aren't good. Because I will tell you, with the Pickford litigation, there were like 40,000 people who thought they had a claim. At the end of the day, there may be 20, 25,000 people who did, and 15,000 people who didn't. So that's probably true in Garcia. I don't know that, but that's probably true. Maybe not, but it might be. Well, no, I'm not, sir. I'm not denying that you need a process, okay? And I'm happy. If it were up to me, if I could do this, I would. But I need direction from Congress, either to set the process up or to give me money and say, go figure the process out. I don't have either one of these right now. And neither do you. And so we'll just keep working. That's been a good fun.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, thank you for coming to New Mexico. I'm Sharon Lombardi, Executive Director of Dairy Producers of New Mexico, which is a grassroots association that goes into West Texas as well. We represent about